So I want to start this episode with a couple of questions. Do you struggle to say no? When someone asks you to do something that you really don't want to do you struggle to say no? Do you say no, or do you say yes when you really want to say no? Do you lend someone something? If someone asks you to borrow money, do you give it to them even though you don't want to? Do you go to restaurants where you don't like the food to make someone else happy? Do you not tell the person that you're with when they've said something that offends you? These are all boundary issues. My name is Terri Cole. I'm a licensed psychotherapist. I am a relationship and boundary expert and the founder of the Real Love Revolution and the upcoming Boundary Bootcamp. So if you've noticed, I've been talking a lot about boundaries because I'm really, really amped about teaching all of you how to have healthy and flexible boundaries. I feel like so much of the time with boundaries, people think that drawing a boundary means having a confrontation, or it means building walls instead of building bridges. And none of that is actually true. When you think about what boundaries do for you, they actually help you be your true self with the people that you love. So when you don't draw effective boundaries, so let's get clear. What is drawing an effective boundary? What does this mean? This means that you readily tell the people in your life what is okay with you and what is not okay with you. That's the simplest term. There are other more complicated boundaries, but what we're really talking about is when your selfish friend who always picks the restaurant that's near her friggin' apartment all the way out in Brooklyn somewhere, that you say, hey, no, every other time you've got to come to the East Village or wherever it is that you live, rather than, because what ends up happening, like think about this, when you don't draw boundaries, when you don't tell the truth, right? When you don't tell someone how you feel. Now, those feelings don't go away. You're still annoyed, upset, hurt. So what then do you do with those feelings? Well, much of the time we will talk about that person to someone else. Can you believe so-and-so for the 5th time in 2 months asked me to come out to Brooklyn instead of her schlepping her lazy butt out to the East Village or whatever it is. But what is the problem with doing that? You guys, you know it. Why doesn't that work? Oh, because the person who needs to know that you're pissed off doesn't know. So they're going to continue to violate that boundary because you haven't told them you feel violated by that experience. So why do we do this? Let's get to the origin. There's so many different issues that you could have about your boundaries. And actually next week, I'm going to give you guys a boundary quiz, and we'll be covering all the different types of boundaries and really the types of boundaries when you're out of balance, what that looks like. There's like 6 distinct ways that we behave, and I bet you'll be able to pick yourself out in the lineup of those. But for today, I want to talk about why you are the way you are with drawing boundaries. So today we're talking about your downloaded boundary blueprint. And those of you who've been following my work, you know that I talk a lot about blueprints. Why is that? Because most of the things that we can't figure out in life now go back to a different time period. So that's what we're going to be covering in this video today. So what is your downloaded boundary blueprint? What is a blueprint in general? A blueprint is a set of beliefs, thoughts. It's the way that your mind, your unconscious mind, is organized about something. So where does that come from? Well, it comes from the way that you were raised, the family system that you grew up in, the culture that you grew up in, the country that you grew up in can impact the way that you can or cannot draw boundaries with people in your life. So think about your home where you grew up. Many of you have written into me and told me that you've come from very dysfunctional families, and most people do, honestly. I mean, who actually has a perfect home life? Nobody. But if there was addiction, abuse, neglect, any kind of chaos, it's most likely going to plant the seeds of unhealthy boundaries for you in lots of different ways. So I want you to start thinking about the home that you grew up in, right? Since everyone is allowed everyone has a different experience. I'm going to ask you to think about a couple of questions, and then I'll have a little downloaded. There'll be a link where you can download these questions. You don't have to write them, but I just want you to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and allow yourself to go back in time. So the first question about boundaries is that, were people allowed to have privacy in the home that you grew up in? Meaning, were you allowed to close the bathroom door if you were in there? Could you close your bedroom door? Could you have a private phone conversation? Or was there always someone around? The next thing is, were you allowed or encouraged to express your thoughts and your feelings, especially if it differed from the majority? Right? If the family felt a particular way, but you felt differently than that, were you allowed to be different than them? Was it a family system where everyone knew what was going on in your life, whether you wanted them to or not? So you may tell one sister something, and then she told your mother, and then everyone, before you know it, everyone knows that you and your girlfriend or you and your boyfriend broke up. Another question. Oh, was there one person in the family system who was more controlling than others? So did you have a very domineering mother or a very domineering father? Or you could also be dominated by a sibling, especially if they were an addict in some way, because really the whole family starts to organize around what we call in therapy the identified patient, basically. So that's another question, is, were you dominated? Meaning you had to sort of sublimate your own desires, your own feelings, your own wishes, because there was a greater good of the family system. Like, if you're in a dysfunctional family system, it's a luxury to talk about the way you feel, right? In super dysfunctional family systems, you're just trying to get by without being hurt. You're just trying to survive, basically, and maybe do well in school or whatever it is that you were trying to do in your own life. So this is just to get you started thinking about how your boundaries, the style that you have right now, how it may have gotten laid down. If you have the disease to please, right? So what is the disease to please? And I've talked about this in other videos as well. It's being socialized that what other people think, how other people feel, what other people want, is more important than how you feel and what you want. So I find with most of many of my audience is women, and most of my private clients have been women. And this is very common, certainly in North America for sure. And with my groups that I run, I know that it's very common in Europe as well, where women were socialized to be nice. Like, be a good girl, be nice above all other things, right? We needed to be nice above all other virtues. And yet the truth is, this is a very backwards thing to teach someone. Because so if you have the disease to please, what are the 4 elements of that? I'll tell you. You say yes when you really want to say no. You prioritize everyone else's needs above your own. You avoid a confrontation at all costs. So think about those. Does any of that resonate with you? The avoiding a confrontation part? Do you just go along with something because you don't want to make a big deal out of nothing, right? All these lies we tell ourselves so we don't have to draw a boundary because we're afraid to do it. Do you prioritize everyone else above yourself? Do you say yes when you really want to say no? And the last one is, do you apologize often, but most of the time you're actually not sorry? So using apologizing as like a social lubricant, let's say, to smooth things over, even though you're not sorry. And all of those scenarios, what ends up happening is that you end up abandoning yourself. So you can't trust yourself to take care of yourself, to tell the truth about what it is that you want, about what it is that you prefer. And the thing that is so backwards about that is that supposedly we were taught to be super nice in all situations because this is how you can be a good person and because this is the right thing to do. But what really happens is that nobody ends up actually knowing you in your life. Because when you don't tell your sister, your mother, your friend, your lover that what you like, what your preference is, if you just go along with what they say, or if you don't say no to something that you don't like that feels that it's, kind of violating to you, you're setting them up to fail, right? How can your boyfriend or girlfriend be a good partner to you if you don't even tell them how you feel about things? If you don't even tell them when you're mad about something, or when you're annoyed, or if you do it in a super passive aggressive way, like stomping around or slamming a door or being withdrawn in anger, which are all ways to non-verbally express how you're feeling or your displeasure in something. And now that doesn't lead to a productive conversation, and that doesn't lead to someone knowing you more, right? That just usually leads to a fight. And finally, the other person will say, oh my God, what is wrong? And then so much of the time, my clients would tell me that they say, nothing, I'm just tired. No, what? Nothing's wrong. I just feel like being alone right now. Rather than saying, when we were at dinner last night, you said this thing that really hurt my feelings. And I want to make a simple request that you think before you talk. That was really hurtful. Give them an opportunity to be sorry. I don't know that they're going to be. But if you never say what's really on your mind, then how can they? So it really is this, it's incredibly counterproductive to you actually being known. So my feeling is, how about we prioritize learning to draw healthy boundaries, learning to speak your truth with ease and with grace, with kindness, with love, right? Drawing a boundary doesn't have to be mean or a fight. Nobody has to be cursing. The more you do it, the easier it gets for you to do it. So I want you guys to download the little boundary questions so that you can start to get a more clear idea of the origins of your boundaries that don't work. Listen, I'm sure you've got some great things that your family of origin gave you. Great. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. But it doesn't help you for us to talk about that, right? Let's just talk about the stuff that's not working, where you feel like you need to have a conversation with someone, but you can't. Even in wanting to say kind and loving things. Some people their boundaries are so tight that they can't even allow themselves to be vulnerable enough to just tell the truth. Say thank you so much, or how you're feeling about something, or whatever it is. That also is an indication of unhealthy boundaries. So once you get a more clear picture of your boundary style, it'll be easier for us to figure out how you can change that. So this video is for you to understand your downloaded boundary blueprint. Once you have that, next week's video is going to be about the 6 different unhealthy, basically, boundary styles. So you can start to really see how you're acting out a boundary style that isn't getting you what you want in life, which is what it's all about, right? My job is to just help you get what you want. And because I've been doing this for 20 years, I know that you absolutely can. So for the ladies in the crowd, if you have not signed up for my Boundary Bootcamp, please do. Just go to terricole.com/Boundary Bootcamp. There will be a link under this. There'll be a link everywhere. Just find it. And that'll give you access to a bunch of information about boundaries. And I'll eventually be doing it about 2 weeks from now on September 8th. I'll be doing a masterclass. So if you sign up there, you'll then have an opportunity to be in the virtual masterclass on boundaries to really get your boundary intelligence on. Because I promise you, this is going to up-level every relationship in your life, from work to love to family to friends. So I hope that you found this helpful. If you did, please share it on your social media platforms. I hope you guys have an amazing week diving deep into your downloaded boundary blueprint. And as always, take care of you.